And I am super duper excited today because we have Jordan Bowman, who's going to be talking to us as an expert voice because this week is Computer Science and Education Week. She is a young lady that is very near and dear to my heart because I had her in class when she was only 7 years old. And I see that Mrs. Bieber is here and Mr. Ford is here, Jordan, some of your fans. Jordan is now attending a school called Rochester Institute of Technology. And I see Mrs. Fearman is on the call and her son is going there this year as well, which is kind of cool. Jordan also attended as an intern. She was at Microsoft in California this summer. And I believe, Washington, I apologize. And I believe that there was a time when you were on the I team and you were the only female. Is that correct?
Probably.
Okay.
I honestly didn't pay much attention to how many girls there were or weren't, besides the fact that there were little.
Okay. So Jordan is going to start talking to us about how she got interested in computer science and what she's doing now. So I'm going to put myself on mute, Jordan, and you can start.
Okay. So, where to start? So basically where it started for me at least was I was in middle school and I was like, okay, let's see, what classes do I want to take? Oh, let's take, I've always loved logic puzzles and stuff like that. So I was like, oh, let's take this computer science course because it seems like logic-y. And I took it and I kind of just fell in love and then it exploded. That's the very short version of it. So I went and I took Mr. Ford's class and it was great and I loved it. And then I moved on to Java. Does anyone know Java? I'm assuming that you guys can type something in the chat. So
yes,
if anyone knows
Java, you might want to explain what Java is.
Okay. I don't know this like level here, so I'm just this questions.
Elementary kids.
Okay, Java is just one type of programming language. Actually, let me pull something up to show you. This is a bad example of code. I'll pull up the other one because that was so it's just one of the projects that I'm working on is not the point of the project is to make code better. So I'll pull up this one. Share screen. Can I do that?
So while she's sharing the screen, if I remember correctly, you told me that you were given a piece of a program that was written wrong.
Yes.
And you had to make it right.
So one of the things that you get into later is everyone always, like, when you start, everyone always is like, you need to write this code, you need to write this code, you need to write this code, versus in a couple years or however many years, when you like end up in the industry or get an internship or whatever, you're gonna be given code normally already. So you need to figure out how to make the code better and improve on that. So that was one of my projects, was just taking this really badly written code and making it better. So we had to do 3 refactorings. So refactoring is just making it better. So 3 different sections of it. And then this here, that can you guys all see it?
Yes.
For some reason I can't see the chat, but I'm just not going to question it. So this here, this is my latest design project that I had to do. So it's very simple. This is Java, by the way. It's not, well, it's the UI is very simple because it's just you type and then it responds to you, and then you type some more and then it responds to you, and that's pretty simple. But this gets pretty complicated. So this is very like a lot high level things.
Can you tell us what that code is supposed to do? Like
okay, I'm gonna go to the one. So a lot of what you do when you're going to be coding later is you're going to be working in teams. So this is not my code. This is one of my friend's code. I'm going to go to mine. Here it is. Okay. So this right here, I've given a list of parameters to search for something, and then this here just loops through the all of the like lists of things and finds the one that fit those parameters, and then it returns it and tells me this is what's going on. So it's like, mhm.
So is a parameter like kind of guidelines? So if you're going out to recess and you want to play with a ball, you're going to look around and you're going to say, okay, well, basketball has a ball, soccer ball has a ball. If one of those things fits in our parameters, is that okay?
It's a lot like, so here, you're given this range of balls. You're given a soccer ball, you're given a basketball, you're given a football for me in my parameters. And like that is your list here. That is your list that you're searching for. And then you're given this other type of ball that you have to match it to. So that your parameter is the other type of ball, if that makes sense. Like you have ball 1, which is some type of ball, and you say you can't see it and you don't know what it is, but you have to match it to some type of ball. So you would compare it against all the other type of balls. So that's basically what's going on here, is it takes your ball and it compares it against all these other type of balls to figure out what it is and then give you more information on it. So like what color it would be or like how big it is type of thing.
Thank you for clarifying that. That makes sense.
Okay. So there's more different versions of that, which are a lot more complicated.
And when you said that you had to do 3 refactors, that's like doing it once and then saying, okay, this is good, but how can I make it better? Doing it twice.
Yeah. So what we had to do is we had to find 3 specific sections in the code. So we had to find, okay, here is a spot where, do you guys know what loops are?
Remind us.
So basically loops are like this right here, where it just does the same thing a certain number of times or until a condition is met. So like you wash your hair until it is clean, but you don't just wash your hair, like go like this and then you're done, irrelevant of how clean or not clean it is. You wash your hair until it's clean, and then when it's clean, you move on. So that's kind of what loops are. So what it was they had a bunch of things where they would say, okay, we're going to do this one thing. So we're going to add this number plus 2 or whatever 64 times. And they wrote out each 64 times. Whereas they could just use a loop to do it 64 times. And then the code goes from like, I think we turned that class from like 1,500 lines into about 500 lines by adding loops. So
loops help you make your writing shorter.
They help you make your writing shorter and more concise. And it's very helpful when you have to do the same type of thing multiple times. So
go ahead. I was going to say, a lot of times when we're writing stories, we're told to write more. But when you're writing using a programming language, writing less is actually better.
As long as it makes sense. So writing stuff out is very good practice because it helps you understand what's actually going on. Then when you start adding loops and stuff in, it's good to do that because you've done okay, I'm going to write it out and I understand why it's doing this and what's going on and all of that. And now I don't have to write as many lines and it'll do the same thing. But then some people take it to the extreme, which was what you shouldn't do. And they try and write like entire programs in one line, and no. Because there's fancy ways that you can do stuff that just, no. The rule of thumb, to me at least, is you want your code to make sense. So if someone else looks at it, they should be able to like decently figure out what's going on, be able to see, okay, I see that they're looping through this, and then there's checking this type of thing. Versus I could put that in one line and it would look so bad and it'd be so hard to understand, but technically it would be in less. So there's the trade-off between that. And then also, I have no idea if comments are in what language you guys are using, but comments is what we use. So this right here is a comment. if you can, I don't know if you can tell, but it's a little lighter, like darker color, like than this text. Basically, it's something that the program completely ignores. So it's it's what you put in front of like a section of code, like here, to say, okay, this is what this does in case you can't figure it out. Mm-hmm.
Gotcha.
So
That's kind of like a little summary of what it's doing without having to read the whole, try to, okay. So it's like reading the back of a book.
That's exactly what it is. Yeah.
Okay. A lot of us, I know, just because I know some of the classes we're using drag and drop programming and block programming. And then you have some I-teamers here who this is their jam. So
yeah. Okay. Do you want me to just keep going over coding or?
No, we would love to hear about what you did this summer.
Okay. So what I did this summer personally, I'm gonna unshare screen if I can figure out how to do it. I can't figure out how to do it, so I guess I'm just gonna leave it. So what I did this summer was I went to Microsoft and I worked on an internal team with the finance application. But more specifically, it's a website version. So I went through with me and 2 others. So it was a group of 3. We work a lot of the time. You're going to work in teams. And we went through and we turned the code from, you can't really understand what's going on if you're using a screen reader, to, yeah, you can use a screen reader now and you can get through the program. So it was an interesting experience because I'd never worked with like accessibility before. So like if your eyesight's kind of going bad and like you want to use a magnifier or something, we looked into like how that would work like better versus how what's it called? Like just normal people would do it. A screen reader is something that you can download. So have you guys ever heard of like VoiceOver or things like that? Have you ever had your computer accidentally talk to you when you're trying to like mouse over something? Yeah, that's what a screen reader is. It's very confusing when we accidentally turn it on because there's a ridiculous amount of key combinations. But what it's used for is when someone is visually impaired, so like they can't see at all or they can see very little, they use it to go through websites and go through things to get the information. So I don't know if many of you have done this because it's a very rare thing, but if you've ever been like tabbing through like a form or something, and then I know in my thing for school submissions it does it, when there's like a text box with a bunch of different like options to like change the font size and all of that. When you're tabbing through it, you see something that's like skip to text or something like that. That's for screen readers, so that they don't have to, because they have to go through each part of the thing individually. So when you have like something there, they would need to go through each individual line to be able to go through, to be able to get through and understand what's going on. So we made it so that before it was like reading things off twice and not reading other things. And it was really strange, but we fixed all of that on the button.
So you were helping make websites available for people who had trouble seeing. And some of us might have have an understanding of that because we've experienced it. But for some of us, like myself, I just get on a website and I expect to be able to, I don't even think about it. I just take the information in. Okay. Very cool.
Yeah. Same thing, like it was at Microsoft, there's a big stress on accessibility. So like if you ever make a video, there's no harm in just putting closed captions on it. And RIT has the National Technical Institute for the Deaf, which is basically, I see a lot of sign language around here. So I'm getting very used to whenever I make something like that, you just stick subtitles in, or you just, in your pictures, you just put a description too, because in case someone can't see or something like that. So
that's a really good point, because a lot of times, and I'm pretty sure that everybody here has made stuff for other people or to present it, but personally, I've made it for people that could see and hear. And that's not always the case. Or even for people that can't read yet. You know,
Mhm.
I didn't think about that. Thank you.
Mhm. So I know PowerPoint is really nice. They have this special feature with you can put in an image and then it'll try and auto get like a description of the image basically. So if you put in a city, it'll say city normally. So that helps with the auto thing. So if someone's using a screen reader, they just go through and then they see the picture and they're like, I can't see the picture. So what does the picture say?
Okay. Now, you said that when you worked at Microsoft, you had to work in a team.
Mm-hmm.
So, did it look like what did your workspace look like?
Our workspace was really open actually. So it depends on where you were. But for me, it was really open. It was, you had like your desk, and then the next person beside you had the desk, and then there's like a little wall in between, which is like a whiteboard. And then there's just rows, like there was like 2 rows of desks, and there was like half rows behind us. Um, it was super, super open environment. It was really cool. Because like you think like it's all, and like the whole back window was whole back wall was windows, so it felt very open and very like you didn't have to worry about like, oh, I'm going to say the wrong thing or I'm going to like make a fool of myself, because everyone there was super like nice to you.
Mhm.
So the whole work environment was really, really nice.
Nice. Now, what are you hoping to do with computer science when you graduate?
My goal is probably to work at Microsoft. I'm actually going back there next summer. I'm going to work on Word Online. I'm really excited because I want to do, or at least look more into web stuff, like website design and those kind of things, and maybe like app development. So I'm very interested in that. I don't have like a I really want to go work at this company kind of thing that people have, but like I really loved Microsoft. Like people are gonna have a hard time beating that experience. So I think that's probably where I want to end up going. I don't know exactly what I want to do yet, like besides maybe web stuff,
Mhm.
because there's so many different things. Which so the best way to figure out what you want to do is be like, I kind of like that. Let's try it. So
Very cool. And one of the things that I had mentioned it was I thought that you were the only IT
mhm,
female for a while.
mhm.
I'm wondering what your classes are like in the makeup of Microsoft. Was it pretty equitable? Were there different kinds of people that work there or in your classes, or what have you
So for my classes, RIT in general is about a 70% guys, 30% girls school, because it is a tech school and stereotypically there is that gender difference. Software engineering, which is where I'm in, is 70-32. So I can tell that there is a lack of girls, but it's also kind of cool because you connect with the girls more so because you're one of the few people that are like that. So they're probably bound to have something in common with you. So I've made some like really good friends with the girls in SE. So
Okay, very good.
and then,
And I,
oh yes, and Microsoft. Microsoft was really cool. Where I was working at the time, like when I started, there wasn't any other girls in my team. There was a girl project manager, which is basically the person who figures out what's going to go. What are you going to do? So, like coding it versus planning it, kind of thing.
mhm.
Um, so there was one of the there's a girl PM, but there wasn't any girl coders besides actually the whole 3 of my group was girls. But by the end of the time we got there, they had hired a girl for. So I was like, well, okay.
Very cool. Now, you talked to us about what coding looks like because a lot of us have done drag and drop coding. So, what it looks like whenever you are doing it at a college level. You've talked to us about um, different parts of writing code. You told us about what life was like at Microsoft a little bit. And you told us about what you're hoping maybe to do, and a little bit about equity. And I'm wondering if anybody has any questions for Jordan from any classes. And if you do, you can unmute the mic and we will make sure that you are heard. So here was a question that came in through the chat. What is the first thing you coded?
Oh gosh. I think the first thing that I coded was I forget what it was called back then because it's called something different now. But my first class with Mr. Ford, I think, was the first thing I technically coded. So, which is it. So we first started off with HTML, so websites and things like that. So that was really cool.
That's what got you hooked, right?
Yep, that's what got me hooked.
Yesterday, Mr. Ford was talking about having, what really interested him was that coding was challenging. And so kind of getting stuff was really exciting when you finally got it. Okay. So this is another question. What is your favorite thing about coding?
Okay. I think it's probably the satisfaction that you get once you finally solve a problem. So like you're given this problem and you're like, I have no idea how to solve it. And then you try to just start working at it. And then once you finally get it, you're like, oh my gosh, I did it. Like I accomplished something. And it's a really cool like feeling.
Awesome. Is coding hard in college?
So I'm the answer is gonna be yes, but like there's always those little like things. So a lot of what makes it harder in college is just the general difference between college and high school. Because in high school or in like any of your classes, think of it any time that you're just sitting there working, you're not going to be in class for that. So it makes it a lot easier to procrastinate your projects and things like that, which is not a good idea ever. So it's you end up with the time crunch, and then that makes it harder. Versus if you'd have just started working on it to begin with, then you'd be fine with just doing it basically.
That sounds like a life skill, managing
Yeah.
our time and making sure that we do our
Yeah.
jobs. So
Yeah.
I think you answered the two questions. What is the hardest thing about coding and what is your favorite thing about coding? What should we learn in second grade to be better coders when we get older?
So for me at least, the main thing about coding that you want to learn is your problem solving skills. So basically how you would think through the problem before you would go and actually try and code it. And then when you're coding it, trying to figure out, okay, oh, this doesn't work. Oh my gosh, how do I fix it? So those are the two most important things to me at least, because you're going to learn eventually a bunch of different languages and a bunch of different ways to do it, which if you forget, oh, I forget exactly how to make a for loop in this language, you can look it up. And after you use it a bunch of times, you wouldn't have to look it up again. So like constantly looking it up is not a good idea. But like knowing how to do something is more important than knowing the syntax of how to like technically write it. Because if you know how to do it, you can figure out how to write it. But if you know how to write it, you can't necessarily figure out how to do it. So a lot of programming, to me at least, is the mental state and figuring out how to think about it.
That kind of reminds me of math problems. If you memorize a math problem, you have it memorized, but if you forget it and you don't know how to solve it, then it's kind of tough. So same kind of thing, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Okay. Sixth graders can't go to Microsoft for a summer internship now, but what can they do?
So everyone preaches personal projects, so I will preach it too. Um, so basically, if you're like, I am interested in learning Java, like I talked about. What is this person talking about, this Java? Maybe look into it a little bit and see, okay, this is what this is. Because what I ended up doing the summer after my first year in high school, which is when I did my first programming class, I did a camp for Java, and it helped me tremendously when I went into the actual Java class in high school, because I already knew like the basics, so I could work on learning more of everything else.
So
So if
it's
you're interested in something, look more into it on your own time, basically.
okay. Thank you. And that sounds just like a good life lesson as well.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And Mrs. Fearman has to go, but she said her son is Jordan Fearman. He's a freshman.
Jordan
Look him
Freeman.
up. Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. And I think that that was all of our questions, because you also answered how old you were when you started coding. And we'd like to thank you because you are living it. And it's kind of interesting to see that, you know, you started in high school and it became a passion, and here you are in college and it's still a passion.
Yep.
So thank you very much. I'm
No
going to
problem.
stop.